Let's talk about the soon-to-be fourth largest economy in the world, California. Even though we've heard non-stop stories about people fleeing the state, a recent finding from LinkedIn suggests that San Francisco is now ranked second among places gaining the most workers, despite being listed as one of the top 10 cities losing the most people in the year prior. Or you also have Tesla. In 2021, they proudly announced their departure from California to Texas while criticizing the state for its taxes, regulation, and litigation. But today, 2 years later, they're back. Now, there isn't any confirmed reason as to why they decided to move back, but it is speculated that California offered them substantial tax subsidies to relocate. And they did. Now, Tesla's not alone in this either. There's plenty of stories of former California residents who picked up and left, were unhappy, and then decided to move back. One of the more notable people in this category is the KISS frontman Gene Simmons, who left Los Angeles for Las Vegas. But wouldn't you know it, 1 year later, he sold his Vegas house to move back to Beverly Hills because he hated the weather. Of course, bad weather isn't the only thing getting in the way. California companies are also asking their employees to return back to the office, with Mark Zuckerberg encouraging staff to find more opportunities to work with your colleagues in person. In addition to that, some California companies are getting a lot more strict about in-person attendance. For example, Apple. It's reported that they're threatening to level disciplinary action against workers who failed to come into the office for 3/5 of the working week. Meta also said that it's easier to build trust among workers when they're all in the office at least 3 days a week. Or how about JP Morgan, who's required its leaders to be in the office 5 days a week with no exception? Even though that all sounds extreme, truth be told, it seems to be working. Earlier in the year, it was reported that more than half of employees have returned back to the office, and today that number is significantly higher, especially in San Francisco. The same also goes for Disney, whose new CEO now requires employees to return to their Burbank offices at least 4 days a week. All of that is to say that even though California experienced some of the largest net migration out of the state during COVID, with return to the office going back into effect, the numbers are beginning to turn back around, with even more Floridians having moved to California than the other way around. As far as whether or not I've thought about moving back, the answer is probably not. We've just really enjoyed the community here in Las Vegas. The heat's not that big of an issue because I work from home all day anyway. And even though California's weather is nicer, all things considered, the Vegas weather isn't really bad, outside of the few months of the year where it's 115 degrees. But again, I'm inside anyway.
So let's have a look at that data. So this is a nice little property that's coming onto the market in Phoenix, not far from the city centre. Let's put that into the real estate assistant on ChatGPT, and we'll get some details of that property. So one of the things that can impact house prices is migration. That's people moving within the country, but also immigration, people moving into the country and then moving around the states. So nice little property there, got all the details, and we can do some follow-up questions now. So we've added some more functionality because migration is a big factor that impacts property prices. So we're putting some data to the real estate assistant to help us with top-down macro view when we're looking at property. So this should produce a little bar chart in a second that tells us the top 10 declining states. So we've got California and New York, and that's in millions. So roughly 500,000 people have left California, and 500,000 people roughly have left New York State. And where have they moved to? So we can ask it that question as well. And so it's going to draw us a similar chart, but for the top 10 fastest growing states by population. These are the USA. And here, what we've got is it's telling us that 1.2 million have moved to Texas and 1 million have moved to Florida. So here we've got 1 million total, just over 1 million total that have left California and New York. But here we've got 2.2 million that have moved to Florida. So there's a mismatch there. So the moving from one state to another for work probably isn't what's impacting these numbers. This is likely to be something more related to immigration, so people moving into the country and into states like Texas and Florida. The other thing we can do, we haven't got a full data set yet, but produce a house price trend chart for Texas, as we've got the most people that have kind of like moving into that area. Let's see if we can see a house price trend chart. It should be able to produce that now, and all transactions. There we go, that's what I was looking for. So 1975, little steady rise, and then what we can see is that over the last couple of years, it's just gone vertical. So that coincides really with, let's just expand that a little bit. So that coincides with the migration data. So this is a really good way of doing real estate analysis using population movement. So it's always worth keeping track of news items and kind of people posting stuff on YouTube about population trends and things like that. So where there may be people moving back to California, that was reported by Graham back in August 2023. So these things don't tend to impact prices overnight, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on things like this and population, kind of, people moving around. Okay, so adding some more functionality. This stuff is really good for doing a top-down analysis before making a decision on buying a particular property. We're at version 0.1, so we're still not yet full release. This is not a full data set. This is just a sample data set. So we're gonna keep programming away and improving it. By the time we get to version 1, we should have a fully featured tool for buying, selling, and then probably going to release stuff to do with investing in real estate as well. So let's keep going.